What is going on, everybody? My name is Alan, and I am the host of Two POGs podcast. I am joined today by my co-host over here, Anthony from Maine Veterans Project, and we have another awesome guest with us today. I'd like to introduce a man who has a lot of accolades. 89 countries. He's an author. At one point in time, you had a $50,000 bounty on your head. Navy veteran, and the founder of a very successful, very awesome nonprofit organization to help veterans. Goodwin.
I don't know who this guy is, but he sounds pretty awesome.
I don't know about that.
Funny thing is, that's literally what I said not to do when we first started.
And you did it all right.
First thing I did.
I did it well.
But wait, go ahead, sir.
Oh, go ahead.
Thank you so much for that awesome introduction. Life certainly was a little more adventurous a few years ago, but you're right. The Maine Veterans Project does a great job of filling that gap and bringing a sense of purpose to the table. And not to mention, it's the conglomerate efforts that make MVP. It's everybody else that's involved that brings it up to the top is awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, and so real quick, the reason why we do this podcast, for those that haven't watched our last episode, one of the big reasons we wanted to start this is to raise awareness for what it is that our two organizations do. And maybe, at some point this turns into some sort of revenue source that we can use to then give money to both of our organizations to be able to continue the projects and the programs that we have going on. And so I have my own organization, Not Your Average Nurses Foundation, and I founded that because I started doing work with Maine Veterans Project. We did that first turkey drive. I was like, I love doing this stuff. This is awesome. And I will say, when I first met you, I remember I reached out and I was like, you were like, oh yeah, come meet with me at the office. And I was like, holy shit, I'm going to be the president of this organization. I had no idea. I had no idea what to expect, and I got here, and I was kind of nervous about it. Again, I had no idea who you were. I had heard a lot about Maine Veterans Project, but I hadn't really done anything with you guys at that point, or looked into a whole lot. And I was like, I was nervous. I came in and met you, and you're like the most humble dude I've ever met, and you. I will say, you do a fantastic job of everybody that shows up to help with Maine Veterans Project. You do a great job of making everybody feel like their role is important, no matter how much they do. Even if they just show up and they carry a few things around, they hang out, they conversate, it creates a great environment at all the events. And like I said, you do an awesome job of making everybody feel like no matter what their role is at an event or within the organization, like they're doing something good. And that's awesome.
Well, there's a reason for that. Next time you fly on a jet, just know that the smallest, cheapest part in that engine is keeping you alive. And it's one of the most important things in the world when it's needed.
Yep.
So I love that you just touched on that, because that's literally why MVP is so successful. I'll admit I did this alone for a little while, and we did okay. But once we started doing the team thing, we started doing really good. And again, you not only contribute to the food drive, you're actually a stakeholder in that food drive now, because we were only non-perishable goods, and now we bring the meats, and those are very important. The non-perishables, the perishable stuff is very important. You can't keep stockpiles of it on hand. So you actually revolutionized the food drive, and I have a feeling that's going to be amazing this year.
Yeah. So actually that's I'm glad we're kind of talking about that real quick, because I would like to talk about what we have coming up. So as far as Not Your Average Nurses Foundation, we've been quiet for a while, but we are starting to ramp things up, and I'm trying to plan ahead a bit more for the turkey drive this year. So last year we added on 200 pounds of meat. I think it was 100 pounds of hamburger and 100 pounds of bacon on top of the 100 turkeys that we had purchased the previous year. And I think we're somewhere over 3 tons of meat. That week.
You actually had venison as well last year.
Yeah, we had
the venison somebody else brought in. But still, yeah, that was awesome that we got to do that as well. But in order to raise money for that, we're launching a heating fuel raffle. And so we already have one business that has offered to donate 200 gallons for us to raffle off.
Wow.
And then we're looking for a second prize. That way it makes the tickets a little more enticing. I think we're going to sell them for $5 a pop. And we're going to sell 500 of those tickets, but there's going to be 2 chances to win either 200 gallons or 100 gallons of heating oil, which, especially in this day and age, that's a lot. So, that's really awesome. And then we're looking at some other things right now. And big news, we also just filed for our tax exemption. Yes.
That's
Finally got that paperwork done. Spent like 4 or 5 hours on that. It was a lot longer than I wanted to, but we finally got that done.
Well, that's amazing.
Yeah. What do you guys have coming up on your end?
So this weekend, actually, on the 24th, we have a event in Newport at the Somerset Poorhouse with Riff Johnson. And we're going to be having a bunch of musical talent that's going to be performing and people going around and getting beer.
Nice. Beer sounds fun.
Beer is always fun. And then September 28th, we have our one of our flagship events that we partner with Diversified Ink and Forecastle Tattoo. That is the 6th annual Ink and Iron Fest at Just Catering. Essentially, that is a place where you can bring your pre-existing tattoos, have them judged, have some drinks, and we will have Dakota there playing that night.
All right. Yeah, I might actually have to go to that because Harley has done a bunch of mine over at Diversified. She does fantastic work.
She would love it if you represented over there.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, no, that's awesome. A lot of good stuff going on. And yeah, so I think now we can actually move on to why it is that we are here today. And that's to actually have a good conversation.
May I add something to this first?
Yeah.
You kind of I'm doing it again. Make sure you add this. You kind of shortchanged yourself a little bit on the food drive. There's a very important aspect to that we partnered with every year that you made happen. Who do we partner with every year, and what did you do to make that happen?
Yeah, I should probably throw in the name of my organization, Not Your Average Nurses Foundation. Again, that is an organization I founded because I was inspired by the work that you guys do. Decided to branch out on my own because there was, you guys are a veterans organization. You're here to help the vets. It's awesome. And it was kind of the toy drive, the Toys for Tots thing. That's the reason why I actually ended up going and founding my own organization, because
Who do we partner?
just wanted to help with it, but you're limited by, how your organization is structured. So that's why I found my organization, but I still want to help you guys. I love being a part of, what MVP does. So that's why, we continue to partner with you guys on the food drive.
I was talking about let's just make this a thing.
I was sorry that are watching, you're going to have to keep a count on how many times Doc does that.
Take a shot every time.
See how far into the podcast you really make it, Ben.
So gonna get some great
I was talking about is our amazing partnership with Dennis Food and Paper Products, because when we bring those turkeys here, you actually came up with the idea to strategically start the thaw process when they're coming so people can get something. And that truck really is instrumental to keeping a consistent temperature. So that's pretty awesome as well.
Yeah, and I mean, we could throw out a shout out to Tyler, who has been our driver for the past 2 years, and they're awesome. They love helping, with anything related to the veterans, because I think Tyler, his father was a veteran, I think it was.
I believe so.
And of course, their son Evan.
Yeah.
He's got
Evan's got his own organization now.
I still have his cop up on my desk.
Yeah, sweet.
So yeah, that's really awesome. So one thing that I want to do anytime that we have a veteran on, I don't want to dive too far into the books. Like I said, if anybody wants to really learn about Doc's life, go and buy his books. He's got 3 books. They're all out here on the table. Maybe I can leave some links in the description below.
Yeah, that'd be great.
And yeah, go over, buy his books. I'm about halfway through your first book. Fantastic read. You definitely didn't hold back on any of the details. So yeah, go over, buy the books. But I would just want to kind of get a basic idea. what branch did you go into? You know, what was your reasoning for going into? What'd you do while you were in? Just kind of explain that to the audience so they have a general idea of like what your background is as far as your military service.
Sure thing. So I started life out in down East Maine, a pretty impoverished area with not a lot of opportunity. I wasn't exactly a Harvard level genius, and I graduated 63 of 64 people in my class. So the military decision, I went into the United States Navy, and there's a little backstory behind that. But the decision is a split decision. On part A, I was working a dead-end job doing road construction. It was bitter cold all the time. I was treated like crap because I was the lowest guy on the totem pole. And then September 11th happened almost simultaneously. So I recognized the fact that I was never going to escape my small town unless I made a move, and 9/11 was what I needed to spark it. I initially called the Army recruiter, and he said, give us a few months. And I said, no, sir, I don't have a few months. And I called the Navy recruiter, and he said, as long as you're not all screwed up and you can pass a P test, I'll be there in the morning. And I said, I can't guarantee the first part, but I can pass a P test. And so that was kind of the gist of the initial, going in.
Okay. And so you joined the Navy and you were corpsman,
Yes.
which we as Marines love our docks.
We do.
Yeah. Took good care of us over there. Now you have, how many deployments did you have during your time?
2, 3.
3. And so you did 2 enlistments?
Yes.
2 enlistments. Okay.
The reason I have an odd number is that Navy corpsmen have to sign up for an extra year due to the
How long was school?
Yeah.
Thanks.
And then I had to re-up to go to the Presidential Security Unit, and they needed a certain amount of time. So it was like an odd number of years versus a normal re-enlistment.
Okay. All right. I do. So I actually draw some parallels to kind of your backstory. I graduated, I think, 83 out of 87 in my class. Now I made the decision in high school because I basically was looking at it and I was like, I don't want to work a dead end job for the rest of my life. I have to do something. And truth be told, I was actually looking at becoming a cop. I was going to be a state trooper. I was watching a lot of like Alaska State Troopers and I was like, that looks awesome. And somehow I ended up being a nurse. I changed my mind several times in between there. But I talked to a state trooper and he had told me like, you can't be a state trooper till you're 21. And I was like, there's no way I'm staying out of trouble keeping my nose clean until I'm 21. So I was like, I got to do something. And I had actually reached out to the Coast Guard. The Coast Guard, they don't have a recruiting office up in this area. The closest one is actually down in Portland. And I reached out to them and they're like, no, you got to come down here. Like, we're not coming up there. I was like, guess you don't really want to recruit me then. Okay, fine. So then I started looking at other branches. I looked at the Navy. I was looking at the Air Force, and there was a retired gunnery sergeant that lived down the road from me. And his son came to the same Taekwondo classes that I was taking. And he was like, have you considered joining the Marines? It's like, I hadn't really considered it, but, it certainly wouldn't hurt to ask somebody about it. And he was like, give me your number and I'll give them your information. They'll reach out to you. Sure as shit. I gave him my number. The very next day they reached out to me, and the day after that they were at my house for me to take that practice ASVAB. And within a month of that happening, I had taken the oath, sworn in, and then I shipped out 4 months later. So like that all happened really fast. And it was, for me, it was a very split decision as well. It was just like, I have to do something. And I kind of jumped in head first on that one. But one of the best decisions I ever made in my life. What about you?
So my story is completely different than both of you. So as you both know, I come from a very big military family, primarily Marine Corps. Won't go too deep into that because we'll probably touch upon that on a different pod. But I knew from the age of 4 what I was going to do after high school. And my path was a little bit different because at that time, my uncle was the RS Sergeant Major for Maine, New Hampshire, and part of Mass. And the recruiting station that I went to get recruited out of used to be ran by my father years ago. Yeah. So walking in there, everyone already knew who I was, so it's not like I could hide anything on anything like that. So it was kind of nice once I finally got farther into my career and away from people who knew who I was. So,
Yeah, because I actually, me and you ended up on.
yeah, you got to meet my uncle.
I got to meet his uncle.
There could be a whole podcast on his family history.
Yeah. And we're actually gonna end up doing a podcast of just me and you. We'll do a couple episodes of that, and I think that'll be a good time.
Oh, but I think for the record right now, he should say his full name to our listeners.
All right. So my full name is Julius Anthony Morano IV. And as you can tell, that name has been passed down a couple of times, and I'm going to continue the tradition once I have a child.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's such a powerful name. I reach out to meet people. I'm like, I'm Sean. He's like, I'm Julius.
Yeah, I'm out.
Yeah.
I'm out. And everybody's like, "Who the fuck names a kid out?"
They're like renamed after Tommy Brandy.
I was named after my grandfather. Very great man. I was named after my grandfather. But yeah, like I just don't know anybody that name. Like, I can't think of a like person. Something that has a name Alan.
Well, the thing is with my name is my mom kind of took the lazy route. She said if it's a girl, it's Shauna. If it's a boy, it's Sean. So I literally just had one of those universal names. And she couldn't have picked a name with 7 different spellings, and it might as well be Brian. And, it's fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, after your time in the service, what'd you end up doing after that? What was the next thing you ended up doing?
Can we swear in this?
I have been this whole time.
Falling straight the fuck off the deep end. So, yeah. So, once you get to the San Francisco part of the book, you're going to talk about what I'm talking about right now. But I was recruited by actually a Marine named John Leckenhouse. He was working for a company that plucked, fresh DD-214s out to go work for companies. And I was connected with a fitness-based company in San Francisco. At first, I was supposed to be working in the DC area and representing them there. And then they decided they wanted me to be in San Francisco. And I don't know if you remember playgrounds as a kid, but San Francisco is the world's largest adult playground. And I quickly got sucked into the vortex of having too much fun out there. People out there party 7 days a week. They don't care. There is so much money over there that some people don't even know what it is. I had friends that just had stuff. They didn't realize where it even came from. It's a Maserati, you name it. And it was just weird to be part of it.
Yeah. And so I've been to San Francisco. Me and my wife went there on our honeymoon. I will never go back. I thought San Francisco was a shithole, personally. Everything smells like bum.
I just don't like California.
No. Literally my first experience in California was Crescent City. Right up on the border between Oregon and California. That was sketchy.
Oh.
Crescent City, it sounded nice. I was like, Crescent City, that sounds awesome. Got that. It was sketchy.
You say like Deliverance music?
Not quite Deliverance music, but some tweakers out there. Yeah. Like I ended up going into a Taco Bell because we couldn't find a good restaurant when we were there. It was like tail end of like the worst of the COVID. And a lot of stuff was closed down. And so we got there and we went to a Taco Bell to get our dinner. And I was inside and there was this dude that was like weekend office rocker. And my wife's out in the car. And all of a sudden she's sitting in the car and I'm sitting there walking the car from inside. I'm like, then I'm getting in that car with my wife.
Yeah.
I didn't know if that was going to be the case, but I was like sketched out. I was like, stay away from my wife. And so she was like, she got all freaked out. She's like, why is he locked in the car? Like, what's going on right now? So, and then I came out with all the food and she's like, everything good. Yeah, we're perfect. But yeah, and like San Francisco has its redeeming qualities. Like we went to Alcatraz and stuff like that. And there were some nice parts of San Francisco, but for the most part, it's a shithole, just like the rest of California. My opinion.
Well,
I agree with it.
I would agree with that. The
Fort Bragg, actually, very nice.
Actually, wait a minute. I have a question for you both.
Yes.
San Francisco or 29 Palms?
29 Palms.
Never been in San Francisco, only been in 29 Palms. I don't like the desert.
There.
I used to go up there on the weekends because my buddies, two of my buddies from Okinawa got stationed in 29 Palms after our 2 years over there. And so I got married very quickly after getting to 29 Palms.
I wonder why.
That's weird.
And then all of a sudden you got housing out in town. And yeah, so we would go there on the weekends and hang out in the desert. And
doing absolutely nothing because there's nothing to do.
well, they
desert.
had, one buddy had a Jeep and the other one had like this really badass off-road Toyota setup. So like we would go out and we would ride up through the mountains and stuff. We did some cool shit. But so yeah, they went to San Francisco. Now when does the what is it, Destination Unknown?
Destination Truth.
Yeah.
Okay. When does that fit in?
So, again, that's another shot.
Look at that. He's keeping track for you.
So, Destination Truth was a serendipitous mistake. It was probably one of the coolest things that's ever happened to me in a really bad time. So I had gotten involved with some friends that really enjoyed partying, and they did a little bit more than just drinking. And so sometimes I did a little bit more than just drinking. So when I was abruptly fired from a fitness company, which should have been no shock to anybody, I was literally out of my ass with no money. And I don't know, I mean, you've been to San Francisco and you've heard it. It's the most, one of the most, I mean, besides New York City, it's the most expensive.
Yeah.
So I was getting ready to formulate a plan to retreat. And Troy Furry, he was a first-class IDC in Connecticut where I was stationed, calls me out of the blue, almost didn't answer the number, 860 number I didn't recognize. And he says, hey, you know, how would you like to travel around the world and do your medic stuff? And I was like, yeah, what does it pay? That would be the beginning of my decline.
Okay. All right. I guess I got to get more into the book because, like, you've done a lot. You've been a lot of different places and everything. And, like, I've seen, like, little snippets and everything. You share some stuff, like pictures on, like, Facebook and stuff like that. And I'm like, that sounds awesome. But I guess I got to get more into the books to figure out, like, the exact timeline.
Well, I guess the first question we should ask, out of the countries that you went to while you were on the TV show, which one was your favorite?
That's a question I get often, and I'll answer it in two ways, because everything has something different to offer. Madagascar in Africa, it was the most amazing due to its biodiversity. There were so many animals there. I actually had a lemur steal my sandwich. And if it wasn't secured, I might have tried to kill it. But I was like, hey, you're friggin' adorable. I don't need food. You do.
Yeah, it's like you earned this sandwich.
I've got to say Italy for the partying. Actually, Moscow. For the
Moscow.
Russia was amazing. But honestly, my favorite places that we ever went were the really indigenous places in Africa where we really got to hang out with down-to-earth people that weren't caught up in the hustle bustle that we are caught up in every day.
Nice.
It's like the hunter-gatherer tribes that you would run into.
No, yeah. When they spoke click, I was in a good place.
Yeah, no, that's awesome.
Well, I think before we move on, we should say what the show was actually about.
Oh,
Because we haven't hit upon that yet. We've only talked about what countries you went, a couple of the countries you went to.
Yeah, so I don't see. I kept thinking it was like Destination Unknown, but those are two very different shows.
Yes, they are.
actually hosted by the same gentleman, I believe.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
And maybe that's why I'm confusing them. So yeah, what was Destination Truth about?
So Destination Truth was a show that was originally on Sci-Fi because it had sci-fi content. And it was essentially a show where we went around the world and hunted monsters and ghosts, except we wanted to find a scientific reason and debunk everything. Weren't always able to, but we were kind of going in with a skeptic's mentality. And one thing I will say is we really went to those places. We weren't Bear Grylls hissing in a bucket 3 feet off the highway. You know, we were literally in like the backwoods of Russia. We were in these crazy wild places. And to be honest with you, it was a little sketchy sometimes. But the experiences were amazing. And I went in as a total like monsters and ghosts. Oh boy. And then I left there being like monsters and ghosts, maybe. You know, so
So like you were Did you ever go to like Mexico or something, look for like the chupacabra or like that, like those sorts of things, like Loch Ness Monster, or like what like
Very similar animals. So they didn't want to do the mainstream stuff that had already been done. So like we went to, oh my gosh, I don't know if I can even say this without slipping up, but Lake Okanaga in,
I think it's Okeechobee.
I can't remember. We went to Kelowna, British Columbia.
yeah.
And there was a lake. Anyway, there's a giant river monster there. What the heck is the name of it? It's essentially their Loch Ness Monster.
Okay.
And you know what we found is with a lot of these creatures, and the Ogopogo, that's what it is.
Okay.
And Lake Okanaga. That's, yes, I've got this right now.
There we go. Now we're on track.
Get some easier things to say, please. So what we actually found, a lot of these monsters and mythical creatures were environmental protection. Like, for example, in Japan, you guys have played Nintendo.
Yep.
Remember Koopa through the boomerangs?
Yeah.
Yep.
That's literally what we were there to. Apparently a river monster that swam up and down the river and bit your penis off when you peed in the river.
Oh, the kappa.
Yeah, that's exactly Kapabushe. And so, you know what I mean? Just, and when we were in Guam,
Yes.
the Guamanian ancestral spirits, the Tautamona, sorry, would injure you if you harmed a latte stone or a banyan tree. You know what I mean? So the running theme is don't mess with the environment, and these mythological creatures won't fuck you up.
All right. Don't piss in a river. You won't lose your penis.
Out of all the places you went to, which one was the scariest? I don't know. Scary can be defined in a couple different ways. So
That would be Antarctica, and the only reason is because I mean we did a night safari on foot with like one dude with a rusty bolt action rifle. I thought we were all going to die of that. That's literally silly. The puff adder is the most poisonous snake on the planet, and they're everywhere in the air. And we're just tromping through here. But the scariest was by and far being in that boat coming back from Antarctica, because I was 100% convinced that we were going to die. I was just hoping it'd be quick, and I was trying to get as much on the Blackberry as I could.
If I recall, like the studio didn't even want you guys to go there, right?
Well, what happened was there was the Clelia 3 was making a trip over, because they do make trips. There's a peninsula at Antarctica that's doable from Ushuaia. It is Antarctica, but you're getting like the very furthest end, and they send cruise ships. Well, this cruise ship was completely disabled, and they had waves hitting like the 4th floor, smashing into the window, taking out the controls. So this like 300 and something foot cruise ship was completely docked, and the studio was like, well, wait a minute, they're taking a 54-foot sailboat through the same exact waters. And they were like, absolutely not. And we literally had to sign death waivers. Like, and the waiver said, not just you could die, that like there was a high likelihood of death. And we were all like, good, let's do it. I don't know if I have those brass ones anymore, but once upon a time.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, because what it's called the Drake Pass, that section.
Is that Drake Passage?
The Drake Passage. So that again, that's the whole reason Panama Canal was created, because that was the only way to get to the Atlantic from the Pacific. That was the fastest way for them to do that. And it was so sketchy, it was better to literally dig a trench through miles of Panamanian, territory with malaria and all the other stuff that they had going on there. That was better than going through the Drake Pass, and you went through in a 55-foot sailboat. That's insane. There was this guy, I was seeing some videos on him. He was like medical personnel down on some of the Antarctic stations that they have down there. It's like, I don't know why, but I would really like to go and do that. It's like a 6-month contract you can go down there and do. And just to say that I did it, I think that would be really cool. Not a whole lot around, you're spending, 4 or 5 months in complete darkness with negative like 180-degree weather out there.
Risk. But the thing, but the thing with Antarctica that I could never
weather out
depict with words is the
weather out.
It's just natural. There's hardly any infrastructure. The animals out there only have so many predators, so they're not too worried about you when you show up. the peace that you find there is amazing. Now, I think after 6 months, you probably, maybe want to drink a beer or something or see other humans. But in all honesty, it was one of the most amazing things we'd ever done. Like, for example, because we had the 54-foot sailboat, we were able to go deep, deep, deep in Antarctica, places that humans just didn't go. And we all disembarked and we stood on this giant iceberg that was bigger than this building. And we stepped back off and we went on the boat. And Hank, who was our Dutch captain, said, that there is going to float out and melt in the next 20 years. No other human going to step on it but you guys. And I thought that was pretty damn cool.
And that's cool.
The leopard seal that came at us wasn't as cool, but everything else about it was amazing.
Yeah, listen to
Yeah, I was like, hey, cool, look at that seal. And Hank's like, no, don't go look at that shit.
talk about that.
They will straight up mess you up. In fact, one of the dumbest things I didn't realize it, is I just wanted to do a polar plunge. So I just dove off the boat and had a little rope ladder hanging off. It about paralyzed me, the coldness of the water. And I had a really hard time getting up the ladder, and because I was all stiff.
Yeah.
And Hank, he didn't really ever show emotion, but he had some colorful ways of telling you whether you did something good or something bad. And he came out very subtly and he looked at me and he goes, you fucking idiot. Listen, whatever hits the water here is food. You're lucky.
and they got the killer whale stuff down there too.
He's right.
And, polar bears, all that stuff. Like, they're all down there.
Everything. But there aren't people. So when something hits the water, it's food.
Yeah.
Stop with that.
You got lucky there.
Yeah.
That's nuts. So we kind of covered Destination Truth there a little bit. And then, so where does the story from Haiti fit in?
So that's in San Francisco. Long story short, I don't know if anybody's ever heard of the company Groupon, but it's like a way to get something really cheap. They send you these coupons that you buy. Like, I'll spend $20 for $50 of sushi at the store. And so I decided to take a flight lesson with my then girlfriend. She wasn't so thrilled, so we compromised and we did the flight lesson anyway. And so it was amazing. I wanted to continue to do it. That didn't count, by the way. It wasn't a shot. I was adjusting. So
Half a shot.
half a beer. So I decided that I wanted to continue it. And I had befriended a gentleman named Adam who decided he would take, because he already had to fly. So I didn't have to pay an instructor fee. I just chipped in for fuel and I got some stick time in. And mind you, I still can't land an airplane. I could take one off, maybe still. But at that time, I ended up calling him out of the blue. And I was like, hey, man, what are you up to? Do you want to do some flight time? And he said, well, I'm actually flying to LA right now, which busts the myth on phones and airplanes. And he said that he was buying a jet for this doctor that was going over to Haiti and providing security. And I said, Adam, Haiti has City Soleil, which is one of the most dangerous cities in the world. You're 50-something years old. You're marginally overweight. You've never been acclimated to an environment like that. What in the actual hell are you thinking? And so I offered my services and the doctor declined me. And I said, because they didn't have a budget for me.
Yeah.
And I said, first trip's free and we'll see what happens. And I'll let you ask more questions. I don't want to give it all, but that's essentially how it all got started. And I went from a free trip to Haiti to being their director of all security operations within a month because some things happened.
Okay. And so when I introduced you, I had mentioned that you had the $50,000 bounty, and that's where that comes from, which is crazy to know that is that's something that you went through.
A little insulted by the number, but
Well, $50,000 cash with two guys who've never had a bounty on their head. So I think you're doing pretty good.
Okay.
Yeah, 50,000 in Haiti is probably.
I was going to say
it's
not like $50,000 here in the U.S. It was still U.S. currency that they were using, but $50,000 in Haiti goes a long
Oh yeah, people that didn't like that.
Yeah, that's. Yeah, and so I don't want to get I don't want to tramp too much on the books and everything because I want people to read your books. But
there's certain ways that we can ask the questions without pulling too much from it.
So you were there. It eventually became protecting kids from child trafficking, right? Human trafficking was what it came down to.
Not so much. So, think about prison rape. It's very rarely sexual. It's dominance.
Yeah.
So what happened was, the earthquakes happened. Haiti went into a state of disarray, and some of the criminal people started coming up and going through the safe houses and like grabbing children and raping them. I'm talking to the tune of 10,000 by the time we found out about it. And they were taking machetes and hacking up the fathers that were trying to help. And it was just to show them, like, we will walk in here whenever we want. We will rape your children. And if you try to stop us, we'll hurt you. Which, and I can only imagine how you both feel.
Right.
That fires you up. That makes you want to go over there and kill those motherfuckers.
Yep.
And, unfortunately, it wasn't quite a hunt them down scenario as it was keep my people that were with me safe. So I didn't get to do the job that I would have loved to have done over there. But there were some skirmishes that may have displayed some military talent to some non-trained people once or twice.
Hey, I'm sure they got whatever was coming to them on that. And I know, so that particular book, and help me out with the pronunciation of that book.
Tueri Liberos, it means to say, to protect children.
Okay. And so that book it basically explains your time there, but then you wrote the ending that you wanted to happen out of that, correct?
Well, I do want to tell people when they read this, there's a lot of fiction in there.
Yeah.
I was not a special operations MARSOC corpsman. The injuries that I have on the very first page weren't the actual injuries I did receive overseas. Because I wrote the entire book once. I wrote 180 pages. I sent it off to a very good friend of mine, Jim McCurdy, and he wrote back and said, for a book that's supposed to be about action in Haiti, you spent 12 chapters talking about yourself and 3 chapters talking about the action. And I said, maybe the original story does kind of suck a little bit. So the action parts of this are very realistic, but how we got there, who we worked with, there's a whole...
Spiced it up.
Yeah.
You padded your story a little bit.
Oh, yeah. That is now 75% fiction. The only true parts are what happened in Haiti. And you're right. The ending is what I wanted to happen, but not what happened. That guy's still alive.
Yeah. And I've seen you post about it before. You're waiting for the call, like you're ready to go back if you ever have to, when you get that opportunity to
Never coming, but I want to.
Yeah, that's...
I don't know, man. I'd go up there now and I'd have to have guns mounted to a walker.
That's some heavy shit, though.
Yeah.
And that's so, like me and Anthony. I mean, I never got to deploy.
Nope.
Which, that I don't enjoy that fact. Like, I wanted to deploy, and everybody that I've talked to is like, dude, you're lucky you didn't. And I get where they're coming from on that, because there's a lot of dudes that have come back with a lot of physical and mental lifelong disabilities and ailments, and I understand that. But at the same time, like, when I joined, I wanted to join infantry, and I was still 17 at the time, so I needed the parents' signature.
I was told I wasn't allowed to.
My mother was like, I'll sign it, but you need to pick something else. And I was like, okay. So I went and I asked for combat engineer, because I was like, that sounds badass. And I was operating heavy machinery in a junkyard at the time. So I was like, yeah, I'll go be a combat engineer. That sounds cool. And then somehow I ended up being an electrical engineer and working with generators and whatnot. And so I went through my school and everything, and then I got to Okinawa, and like everything that we were doing over there was like practice exercises and all this. And they would frequently ask us if we wanted to, deploy. And I volunteered every time they asked for people to go from Okinawa to Afghanistan or Iraq, wherever it was. Pretty much everybody in my shop always put their name on the list, but we had such a small shop, they always pulled from the support units. And so I never got my opportunity there. And the worst thing that I had bitch about, honestly, was like my hotel when I went to Guam wasn't nice.
Oh, you sound like the Air Force right now.
Yeah. Let me tell you, Guam was probably like, I had the time of my life in Guam, but that was $19 million that the Japanese government paid for the Marine Corps to go do practice exercises elsewhere, off of Okinawa. Get all the and they're actually opening up a new Marine Corps base on Guam now to move our asses out.
Japanese said, go fuck something else for once.
Yeah. So They paid $19 million, and the Marine Corps used every penny of that, because when we first got there, it was like they put us up in a 4.5-star resort.
Oh, nice.
Now that was reserved for the officers, but the officers weren't coming for another week, so we got to enjoy that. We got to enjoy the rooms till they got there, and then they moved us to a 3-star.
And then they kicked you out.
Well, you know,
We had more fun in the middle of town, let me tell you.
the really high up officers don't come at all. So.
Yeah. But, and then, I got back stateside, and my unit was deploying MWSS 373. They were deploying to Kuwait, and then they were going to be sent to Iraq from there for Operation Iraqi Saber. And the deployment just didn't line up with my EAS. They were coming back 2 months after I was going to get out. And so it was extend my contract to deploy, and it was only going to Kuwait, which I know what I know what a lot of people that are deployed, I know how they feel about Kuwait. There's a lot of, like, it's a vacation to the desert, really, with a little extra pay, depending on your situation. Not everybody has that, but that's what I've heard from a lot of people. And so it was extend 2 months to go to Kuwait or get out and start school. And I made the decision to get out and start school. But it does bother me that I never got to deploy, because there are a lot of guys that have been over there, and like yourself, you signed up, you went over there, you put your life on the line. I didn't get that opportunity, and it's just how it worked out. I don't know about you. Like, did you get to deploy?
I didn't deploy.
No.
I was stuck at Quantico.
Oh, okay. So yeah.
That was the thing about deployment I had, was going to 29 Palms twice.
So
You should have gone to Iraq once and would have been it.
Probably would have.
I did go. So they sent me to 29 Palms for security training, even though I wasn't going on the deployment, which made no goddamn sense. So I've been to 29 Palms for training, but yeah, like I said, it's heavy shit, that you've seen the combat, not only in the military, but you experience that too in your civilian life, going down to 80, and
I'll share something with you. We'll get kind of juicy.
Let's get juicy.
Pause real quick, just for this isn't part of it, but I do have to get over to Maine military close to 11. Okay.
Yep.
Is that?
Yeah. No. So we'll cut it here in a few minutes.
Okay. So, you ready?
Yep.
Let's do it.
So I hear what you're saying, and that was a shot. Like, you know what I'm saying? And we actually hear that resonating factor a lot, And I'll tell you, it's actually, we veterans are the friggin' reason. I mean, I love fellow vets, but all of a sudden nobody was cool unless they were Ricky fucking Recon Special Forces, and I did this and I did that, and that's why everybody's at the bar lying about their shit, because nobody's cool anymore unless they shot Bin Laden. And so I'm going to tell you guys about the other side of that. About 2 months ago, I walked into this office and I looked at Anthony and I just started bawling my eyes out, because I was just having a really bad day and I didn't know what was going on. And it was the first time I'd ever hit rock bottom like that, truly, like emotionally and everything. I mean, I had nightmares and stuff, and I kind of, I'm okay, and just a couple shots of Jameson later, everything was fine. And I hit absolute rock bottom. And one of the very first things I said to Anthony is, every single time you're ashamed of not deploying, remember this moment that I came in here sobbing, like bawling. I called the VA suicide line. I told them, I said, I'm not going to take my life, but I need help now.
Yeah.
I need help today.
Right.
Yeah, that's what I said. I said, I'm not going to take my own life, but I'm not safe. And the thing is, I have got zero shame about saying that. In fact, if more people would just make that call or talk about it publicly, we might not be losing 22 veterans every single day. So for all those people out there that didn't deploy, just understand that, the stress that you carry, we've got a little bit too. It's just different stress. But the thing is, to absolutely not allow something like not deploying to define your service. And that would be the takeaway point from this.
And that's that. We had a discussion the last time we did our filming. It was before we jumped on the podcast, but me and him were talking about it, because I see it sometimes, especially from grunts. You'll see from grunts, they'll be like, oh, well, you're just cold. Like, listen, dude, you don't get your ammo, you don't get your food, you don't have comms, you don't have, your air support needs without your POGs. You don't get to do the shit that you do without all the logistics behind it. And so it pisses me off when I see rents try to discount the service of POGs. Like, and I think it's funny. Like we're wearing that name proudly.
Oh yeah. So just look at the name of the podcast.
Well, but it's that derogatory. That's when that person gets a little nose touch with the hand.
But so I think we're gonna call it here. I feel like there's a lot more though that we can probably.
Yeah, we didn't even get into the nonprofit.
Yeah.
Well, here's the deal. If you want, I can just kick rocks and you guys can continue the rest of the podcast and just say I'll be back later or something.
Well, so we're actually gonna do our own.
We can do it. Sweet. Okay.
Yep.
So,
So I'll wrap it up if you want to now. Sorry I interrupted.
No, you're good.
No worries at all. So yeah, we appreciate you joining us today, and we'll probably have you on for another episode or two. Maybe you can join us as a guest host at some point, if you really enjoyed this experience.
Oh yeah, it is awesome.
We would definitely like to have other people getting on this podcast. Have you listened to the first one, you?
No, I had to. No, I got to ask me on the air. Okay.
Why we asked you that.
It's also a 45-minute episode. It takes a while to listen to. I don't blame anybody. If you don't have time, you don't have time. But
no, I'll listen to it.
The first guy that we had join us was 26-year Army veteran. Never got a chance.
5 deployments.
Yeah, 5 deployments. Never got a chance to tell his story though. And I mean, nobody really knows who he is aside from his friends and family. And so I think it's a really cool experience that veterans that maybe don't have the spotlight get to come on here or share their story. And, he had some great stories. We're actually going to have him on for another episode.
Nice.
And so if there's other veterans out there that feel like they want to come on and share their story, like, you are welcome to reach out. I mean, our only stipulation in that is just make sure that you can carry a conversation, obviously.
Yes.
That's kind of a big part of the podcast, but.
So you're saying you don't want other Marines on the podcast?
I mean, it depends on how many crayons they have shoved.
I really got punched so hard when I leave here, but that was funny.
Have you seen our logo?
Yeah.
It's got the
we got crayons hanging on.
It's amazing.
But we appreciate you coming on. We'll try to get you on for another episode. If you like this episode, feel free to subscribe to the channel.
Hit that like button and that noti bell.
We're going to have a link to Maine Veterans Project and Not Your Average Nurses Foundation. I have also started a Patreon for our podcast. So there's 3 tiers in there right now. Not a whole lot of benefits to it yet. We'll add benefits as we grow.
What's a Patreon?
Patreon? So a Patreon is basically just you can go on there and you can do a monthly subscription.
Okay.
Like you can donate $5 or $10 just to help.
It's a way to view our stuff behind a paywall.
Yeah.
I'm like, what's a Patreon? I don't know.
And so that's why, like right now, there's really it's not a whole lot of benefits. Like there's some stuff that, we might plan in the future. So if you just want to do the basic level and just do the $5 a month, like that's all you have to do. The other tiers, that's stuff that we have planned, benefits that we have planned maybe for the future. Right now, if you don't want to do that, and you can just go with $5, like anything helps. And again, a portion of all revenue that is generated by this podcast is going to get donated to Not Your Average Nurses Foundation and Maine Veterans Project. I'm also going to leave a link to our donations page and everything on there. And we'll put a link to Doc's books if you guys want to go check that out. Again, like, subscribe, go check us out on all social media, and we appreciate you guys watching.
Thank you. I appreciate you guys.